Hi, Amy. It's always so good to be back with you on Tuesdays, and these come so fast.
I
But
know.
the topics that come up, I'm like, you brought up this one that was, on your heart today, for whatever reason. I was like, me too. I really need this actually. So, Amy, I'm going to let you tee up our conscious conversation topic today.
Well, I am hoping that everyone who joins us has maybe experienced this. I mean, not in a good way, but we are going to talk about what we do when we're having just a difficulty or a challenging time with someone that we're around. It could be a stranger on the street who goes slow in the fast lane. That's a trigger for me, Nikki. It could be a colleague. It could be a client. It could be a loved one, but what do we do when we are in a challenging situation with someone else?
Yes. Yes. And I think of all the times where I'm like, gosh, I handled that so well. I stayed calm. I didn't lose it like I have in the past. And then there's other times where still today, just recently, I'm like, oh, okay, that went off the rails in 7 seconds. What happened there? So I think that we can unpack this today with some fresh experiences for me, but also I want to reflect on when I did a really great job and I recognized it in the moment and just learn some new things. So let's do it.
Yeah. I think, first of all, anybody who's listening to this, I think it's helpful to consider what is a situation in your life, whether it's a repeated pattern of like the types of people who frustrate you, or whether it is someone in your life that has the ability to really push your buttons. I think it's helpful to have somebody in mind, as we're chatting through this. And for me, as I reflect on some of my patterns, Nikki, it is online. Like if I go online and read the comment section, that is something that can get me going because I have very strong convictions and my own personal beliefs of what I think is right. And I know that that is something that like my blood will boil. I will type out a paragraph and then delete it because I'm like, it's not worth it.
Uh-huh.
That's something that really frustrates me. Seeing somebody who is like just unnecessarily like rude or hateful, that really frustrates me. And then if I'm thinking of things that like hook my ego more, I think all of them can be ego based, right? But some seem more justifiable than others. But my ego really gets hooked when people tell me I'm wrong. Like my ego needs to be right. Those are some of the patterns that I see emerge for me. What
Mm-hmm.
about for you?
Yeah, the one on my list, I jotted down a few of these before we hopped on, and the one that I'll meet you on is the hateful. Anytime that someone is just showing up with that presence, I'm like, why? And then I'm immediately there, like, judging them for that. And then I'll go to my top one is judgmental. And so I
Mm,
guess I'm judging the hateful people for whatever, but it just triggers me, like, why show up that way? There's whether it's in a restaurant and how you're treating the server or whatever, like, why? Like, there's no need for that, and I am right, there is no need for that, but that will get me. And then just the judgmental, like, this is the right way, your way is wrong. And many times how that flows into social media, like, religion, politics can get you there really, really quickly. But you know that judgmental way of just not allowing curiosity to show up, me being curious about someone else's take on, like, why they voted for so and so, right? But
hmm
not just knocking them down.
hmm Yeah, absolutely. And I think, for me, in any of these, like working on us being just more conscious is the curiosity of like, what pushes my buttons? What are the things that get me going? I think that's a really big first step. As we've talked about in conscious conversations before, like awareness is the first step to anything. And just noticing what those triggers are is really big. And I think the next piece, if we're kind of walking people through like what do we do when we're challenged, is to really reflect on like what am I believing is true right now? Like with that person's behavior, what I'm experiencing, what story am I telling myself is true right now? And it's incredibly helpful. Like when I Something that is so small that I swear has power over me sometimes are just people who don't drive the way I think that they should. Um, like
I've
whether it's
been that driver.
the speed limit that I think that they should. Yes, you have been that driver. This is why whenever you and I go somewhere, I'm like, I'm driving.
I'm like, gladly.
That might be my ego need to control that pops in. I'm aware. I own it. But the story we tell ourselves is so fascinating. It's like, why am I making this such a big deal? Why is this other person's behavior bothering me so much? Because it's very easy. The unconscious route is just to make them fully to blame without us bringing any curiosity as to why it pushes our buttons and what we're believing is true. There's a really interesting pattern to uncover when we move to curiosity.
Totally. Yes. So Amy, help me with this one because like we said, these are all like, oh, in the moment, what's happening in our lives and unpacking this. So, you said, what are yours? Like, what are the things that typically bring out your ego and all that? And I said, I'll meet you on the hateful and then the judgmental. And then there's this other thing that started to pop up. And now here's a real life scenario. Help me with this.
Mm-hmm.
So I typically think of conflict, I would say more in business than I probably do in personal. Just naturally in business, I will go to my mindset is okay, this person's upset or this person had this challenge or I'm upset or whatever. How do we come together to create like a win-win next step? Like that's just my mantra is like, okay, this didn't go as planned. Here was the deadline. We didn't meet it. Like let's say it's on us. I want to jump in quickly to acknowledge that, and before it gets any further of a problem, because I want to be win-win in this, I'm going to say, hey, I realize we fell short. Let's have a conversation. And I'm trying to like always go for that win-win, if you will. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So, you're in the midst of this business situation and something doesn't go as planned.
Mm-hmm.
In my mind, I have set the tone because this is just my way of being. I'm going for the win-win. We're going to figure this out. Let's do this together. And the minute that someone else on the other side, now granted, I'm thinking through this and I'm like, I never talked to them about setting the tone for win-win. This is my way, right? This is my in my mind, like duh, this is how you do it. But the second that the door opens and the other side is hateful, judgmental, rude, whatever, it
Mm-hmm.
this is my opportunity to grow. And that's where I typically then, oh, I guess we're not win-win. And I'm starting to go down a path of now, wait, but this could have been peaceful. We could have done this right. And it opens my door and I become someone that I don't want to be.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
I
So
do.
help me unpack that for a minute.
So, what I'm hearing you experience, which I think is incredibly normal, is you have an idea of what good looks like. Good doesn't happen. And when that person doesn't reciprocate in the good intentions that you're coming with, it triggers you and it probably triggers defensiveness, which is like now you feel like you've got to defend yourself, your team, your company, your, whomever.
Yeah.
And which is it's a natural response when we are hooked. And so what's happening when we're hooked, just so that we understand a few things that's going on, is number one, when we feel that there's a threat coming biologically, our body's going to go into fight or flight, not because we're not a good person, but it's because it's going to try and protect us. And that's also when our egoic mind can get hooked, because now our emotional brain, like our limbic brain, is enacted. And just knowing that these are like biological responses, they're not necessarily like oh, I'm not a good person. Not to say that you feel that way, but to just be like, okay, I'm hooked. And the ways that we can tell that is when we are noticing we're going into defense mode, when we feel angry, shaky, heart rate goes up, we can feel our faces getting red. We're kind of in that tailspin of like, the quick typing of like, oh yeah, wait till you see what I have to say to you. Like that's when we know that we are in fight or flight and we are not using our best highest self to communicate. And so notice and then take some steps away. That would be my encouragement, is like, do not send the thing. Maybe you type it out, fine. Do not hit send. Take a
Mhm.
walk, go outside, get perspective. When you are able to then calm your nervous system down, you're going to be able to access the prefrontal cortex, the smarter, wiser part of us, that when we go back and read it, we're going to look at that through a different lens. And our natural tendencies of being a loving, empathetic human are going to come back through. But those parts of us are very blocked off when our body and brain thinks that we're in danger. It's not going to
Mhm.
care about empathy if it thinks we're going to be eaten alive by a tiger,
Mm.
right?
Yeah.
It's more like, I'm going to get you before you get me. It's, it's survival of the fittest.
Mm, that's really good. I think an awesome takeaway for me here because just having a situation recently, I I hadn't identified that. Now that I see it in hindsight right now, I'm like, oh duh, like yeah, that's a trigger for me. Is okay. I'm coming to this with this win-win. In the moment, it's my ego playing of like, oh, like really, you're gonna play like that? Then we're going to play like, I feel like it's this open door invitation because they've been rude or hateful or whatever.
Hmm.
And on the backside, all of this past the argument, disagreement, whatever it is, I know I want to feel at peace about it. I want to feel like, we said a little bit ago, the times where I'm like, man, I'm proud of myself for how I handled that. I want to feel
Hmm.
like that all the time. And
Hmm.
and when I said earlier, in my personal versus business, this particular way with the win-win, it's how I'm wired for business conversations. In personal, what I have learned, it's so different because I don't think I'm necessarily thinking that way, even though I want to be that way. It's more of I've learned what fires me up and when to take breaks, like in my marriage with David, for very
Hmm.
early on when something would happen. I remember one time we were in Florida. It was like our first trip or second trip we'd ever taken. I don't even remember what it was, but I remember saying, I just need to take a break for right now. To him, he heard me saying, it's the first time he'd ever heard me say that. He thought like break in our relationship. And for me, it's just been my MO of what I had learned is, oh, I'm getting frustrated. I don't want to do something right now that I'm not going to feel proud of myself. I love him. I want to handle this. And so this break thing was introduced early on. I've learned how to do that quickly in my personal because I'm like, oh, I feel these feelings and I don't want to be that. And I value these people. They're my best friends or my whatever. I just need to take a break and come back to it. What I'm realizing is I could just apply this over here in business too. It's
Hmm.
the same thing, right?
It is. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. It's really
Yeah,
good.
it's there's different areas of our lives where it becomes challenging. I mean, I love the phrase so much that Ram Dass, who is a spiritual teacher, he's passed many years ago, but I love a good like Ram Dass short on YouTube or listening to some of his stuff because it's just really enlightening. But he has this saying that's like, if you think that you're enlightened, go spend a weekend with your family. And there are just some relationships where the patterns are so deeply ingrained
Yeah.
that it is harder for us to take the conscious breath or the pause or to take a step back. And it could be in business where it's like deeply ingrained. So there's different areas of life. And again, it's not like a lack of, I think, us high achievers who want to constantly kind of better ourselves, we can kind of feel frustrated of like, oh God, I really thought I had this figured out. But I think to have compassion for ourselves in that moment as much as we want to have compassion for the people around us. And it's
Mhm.
just a practice of like moving from defensiveness to concern for others. I've always really admired the Japanese culture. They really have a culture of cooperation, where there is just an automatic concern for the people that's around them. There's a name for it. I think it's like omoiyari or something like that. And
Mm,
essentially it's like just be compassionate. Like think of what might be happening in their life. It's basically like empathy in action.
mm,
And so when we are triggered, frustrated, angry, defensive, when we're like having the argument in the shower, either before or after. We've
yeah,
all done that, right? Like,
yeah,
or in the mirror, we're like preparing ourselves. We are in full protection of self. And I think when we can take a few conscious breaths and be like, what might they be experiencing? What could be
mhm,
happening in their life right now? What are things happening? What's their perspective? Where might they be scared or fearful or defensive? And how can I provide a safe space for them? That's incredibly helpful. And the other thing that comes to mind is like, hey, if we get it wrong in the moment, that's fine. We're human. It's really okay to go back afterward and apologize and say, here's how I wish I would have shown up for you.
Mm, that's good. That's really good. I earlier was doing, I put in a situation into Chat GPT and asked for questions that I could have asked in that situation to change the trajectory. And a couple of things came up, and I was like, oh, these are so good. I'm curious some of the ways, Amy, the questions that you use in curiosity mode or trying to realign in a healthy way. One of them, and let me give the context. This person, business situation, something happened, an error happened. The error to me was a 3% out of 100, like a 3 out of 100 problem, like teeny, teeny, tiny, right? To them, obviously, it was like a 97 out of 100.
Mhm.
Something was like, whoa. And I'm like, this is so teeny. And this person thinks it's so big. And so this person presents the 97% massive issue. And my response could have been, I see this differently. Can I share why?
Mhm. Mhm.
And allowing us to, I could acknowledge, I understand where you're coming from, but can I share the way that I'm seeing it, so that we could have started off with like, he's at the 97 and I'm at the 3% problem,
Yes.
maybe then meeting at like 45 or 50,
Mhm.
right? And then working
Mhm.
on it together. Another, and I can't find the question right now, but there's another that said something like, how do you feel about taking a step back to redefine the problem we're working on and who we want to be in this together before we go
Mhm.
forward? And so
That's
it's
great.
like, let's go back and level set and set the foundation, and just, we're in this together. In my personal life, so in the past, definitely had some, marriage challenges. Now my marriage that I'm in, obviously, like, marriage is a constant daily like effort of, working on yourself, being your best self. But one thing that I have learned in my past and how it's applied today is, David, my husband, and I say, are we sitting on the same side of the table? That's the way that we realign, is we say,
Mm.
wait, hold on, are we on the same side of the table? The problem's on the other. We're on the same side, remember?
Mm.
And then it resets us. But what are those things, that help us to, whether it's your husband, that it's like, here's your saying, right? This is my partner, and here's my saying, and it gets us recentered. Or someone that you've never had conflict with, what's the thing that brings you back, hopefully to center, to start in a better place?
Yeah, I love that. And I also think like along this, when we've talked about awareness before in one of our first chats, we were talking about when things don't go our way, and it's like, oh, it's easy. It's really easy to be the best version of ourselves when everything's going according to plan. And
Mhm.
that's so true in these situations of dealing with difficult, conversations or just difficulties and with another person. And we have to remind ourselves that, like, their definition of anything is not ours to validate. If they see it as a problem or challenge, our only job is to understand where it's coming from. And to your point, I think this level setting on like, are we being soft on the person but hard on the issue? Are we showing
Mhm.
up the way that we want to? Are we holding a safe space for each other to be heard? That adage that like if both people are trying to be understood, no one understands. Am I bringing what's missing here? Like, if what's missing is understanding, can I bring that? I think those are really good perspectives to practice and not always easy in the moment. So good on you. Like, if you recognize that you're hooked and you need space, I think it's really wise to ask for that so that you can bring your best self, because it's not always going to happen in an instant. Sometimes we have to take a beat so we can access that.
Mhm. It's so good. So are there ever situations, let's talk, I mean, there are situations where you have a falling out, and
Hmm.
you can have a peaceful falling out, right? A healthy falling out. You said something that I think is core that got me to thinking this. So you said, it's not always what happens in the moment. Sometimes we go back and say, I didn't handle that the way that I wanted to. I'd like to like reset on this, and can we have a little do-over here? I want to do this again, whatever, right? There's
Hmm.
a time and a place for that. sometimes, we realize that relationships come in our lives for reasons, seasons, lifetimes. Sometimes our greatest teachers in life are the biggest challenging humans, right? We learn
Hmm.
so much. And just because we're talking through this doesn't mean that everyone is, hey, we're going to go back. We're going to figure out how do we keep this relationship going and whatever. Like there's sometimes it is the phase of the conversation and how we interact is a peaceful dissolution of the relationships. We can respect each other from afar, right?
Yes.
Like speak into that a little bit.
Well, I think do you mean the way to approach that conversation with the other person or with yourself?
I think I'm going to come at it from the angle of I have some people in that I've met through this journey. They never let relationships run their course. Like
Hmm.
it's always we got to figure it out to keep it going, right? And I think it's okay to understand. Let's say
Yeah.
client relationship.
Yeah.
Just because a client, you're in a business relationship, this doesn't mean it's forever. It's okay that sometimes there's an endpoint. We can do it in a
Hmm.
healthy way, and it did what it was there to do. There
Yeah.
are some people that don't they approach conflict with we always just have to make it better and we're going to be good and we're always friends and we're going to stay. You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
it's okay to, yeah, if you can talk from that angle.
So I have a personal philosophy of never burn a bridge, but that doesn't mean that the bridge is always a direct route back to me. Um,
Hmm.
Meaning I want to be the kind of person who's aligned with integrity of doing what I can to like be kind and respectful and all of that. So I think if you're framing a conversation with someone, I'll share it that way. Like, let's say it's time for a relationship to end. First, I want to just remind people that boundaries are for us, not for other people. We often think like they need to respect my boundary, but it's like,
Hmm.
nope, 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 nope. We set boundaries for ourselves and it's ours to respect and to uphold. And
Hmm.
what other people choose to do with it, like if we're not upholding it, then we allow them through, and we allow them back in. So we've got to decide what kind of boundary is in the greatest good for all. And so maybe it is like the greatest good for all is that this relationship moves on and we love from afar. And
Hmm.
so setting up that conversation is saying, listen, I want to apologize for how I showed up for you. And I was not the best version of me. There were some really great lessons that came through this, and I want to thank you for that. But I'm sorry for how I showed up for you. I think there's a good chance to just apologize and level set to say, I'm really excited for what's next for you. I feel like this is truly the best. And I want you to know I'm here to support you. If you have questions, yada, yada, but I'm very excited for what's to come for you or what's next for you. I think the encouragement of like, whatever is the next phase of a relationship for them to just be supportive of that. And then to say, I just want you to know that um, I will always speak kindly about you. I think if we're leaving, to let people know that there's no animosity, they don't have to worry about if they're not in rooms, if they're unprotected or whatever, to say I will always just have very kind things to say about you or whatever the case may be. So I think it is like own our side, apologize, give encouragement and reassurance that you've got their back. And let's say that maybe it went down like really nastily, like truly, and there's times we have to make peace with they're going to share their version, and I cannot control that. What I have to do is show up as the person I desire to be. So if someone wants to talk bad about them in my presence, I'm not going to join in because I want to be aligned with my own integrity. And I'm going to pray for their happiness. That's something else I do. Like when I'm really challenged and I'm a Libra, by the way, and I'm a middle child, we are peacemakers by nature. It doesn't mean I need everybody to like me, but like I want all endings to come with peace, but that's not always going to be the case.
Hmm.
So I have to make peace within myself. And then again, I will just like pray for their happiness, send them love. And then I'm like, okay, I did my part. What they choose to do with it is their karma in the world.
Hmm. It's good. Something that's coming to me, this is a powerful reflective experience, these conversations. I had mentioned earlier that the struggles of marriage and trying to figure that out, really made it a priority with David to learn a lot of things. Went through some therapy together and read books and things, and we have a couple of tools in our toolbox, like, hey, are we on the same side of the table? And we have this visual, and it like resets this, right? There was something else I said too. Oh, about the win-win, like in business, it's like that's the come from. Well, with David, we've done that together. In business, that's you know, what is it called? I'm assuming others are coming with this. Like, I need to help level set that so that we're all thinking that. Like, it's not fair for them. Like, I'm like, oh, duh, wouldn't that? Of course, they'd be going from the win-win, but we'd have to like verbalize that and make sure we're on the same page. Anyway, here's my reflective moment is, if you look at different areas where you're like in conflict, really good at like, wow, I've got some good foundation here. How did you get there and what is working? Because you could take that and apply it over here in this other place, but we don't think of that a lot.
Mhm.
And what brought that up for me is, when we think healthy endings, I think a team member at my company. Many more times than not, the endings are positive conversations at the end of like what we learned together in this journey. It's completely okay, helping to make connections for them to the next best place, and wanting to be just, hey, love you from afar, wasn't a fit, learned a lot together, right?
Yeah.
But then in other places, let's say in a acquaintance friend, not necessarily maybe like a deep friendship or something, there's not a system for me for that. It just kind of ends, and there's not like this, and maybe that it wasn't like a big conflict, it was this little thing, but there was no conclusion. I'm like, it would always feel better to have some kind of like a, let's just talk through this. And then it's, you're at a game, a NBA game or something, and then you see them, and it's just like you have that good, vibe feeling.
Uh-huh.
But
Yep.
how do you apply what's working for you in these other areas? Because conflict is present in any relationship sector, everywhere. You're doing really great things. Like, what is it that's really working? And then what did you learn? How did you get there? And how to apply it over on the other side? That's just something I've never thought of it, but I'm like, I need to do that.
Yeah, man, I like life, truly life. I know I keep saying like it's patterns, but it is being conscious is being aware of the patterns
Mhm.
that are us, like that follow us around, the things that trigger us, our responses, but also the patterns of success. So the same thing if you're like, wow, this structure of how we set up this business deal was really effective. Why don't we repeat that? This marketing thing really worked. Why don't we repeat that?
Yeah.
There are effective, repeatable patterns. And so I love your reflection of like, what is an area in life where we've had a really peaceful ending and it went really well? And what was the pattern of that? If I were to
Mhm.
break that down, how did it go? And how can I apply that to this thing that seems very different, but it's not, because we're still talking about endings, we're still talking about humans.
Yeah.
And so I think that's helpful anytime that we're stuck. I think about this in my own like habits, like outside of this conversation. But when I'm trying to start a new habit, it's like, where have I found success in what's a habit right now that like I do not miss? And how did I build that? Where did I get there? Just yeah, identify the pattern and work to repeat it if it's a healthy one.
I love it. This is so good. Thank you for another Tuesday morning. Wonderful start to the day. Now to go take it and apply it, and circle back and give each other a high five, because we're like, dang it, look how this showed up today on Tuesday or Wednesday, because it has been happening. Remember, like the flat tire or the
Oh yeah.
challenging conversation. I'm like, the timeliness of just helping us be rooted and showing up in a way we're proud of. It feels
Yes.
good.
Yeah, I love these conversations too. And now, inevitably, there will be a challenging conversation that comes, and then I get to practice what is shared in the world.
Oh yeah. Yes. Awesome.
uh,
Everybody have a great day. Thanks, Amy. See you next week.
Bye.
Bye.